So, last month I made a video covering Chowder's Christmas episode, and how surprisingly emotional and wholesome it got for such a silly show. But it got me to thinking, how well did Chowder end? I rewatched a handful of episodes before I made the video to get a better understanding of the show, and that include the finale, Chowder Grows Up. Chowder aired during the late 2000s era of Cartoon Network, and ending what I consider to be the silver age of the channel, until the network had to ruin everything with CN Real. Because they thought that their core audience would rather watch crappy reality TV instead of the colorful, wacky, and of course hilarious world of Chowder. And I do feel like a portion of its failure was due to divine intervention from the crime of cancelling Chowder too early.
But there won't be any money left in the budget for the third season!
I had so many more stories to tell!
And yeah, everyone who watched it when they were young has fond memories of it, and it's definitely considered one of the most iconic shows from the late era, with its iconic style and colors, lovable characters, and of course, its amazing comedy.
Hey, come on!
But despite its cancellation, it was able to make a series finale, Chowder Grows Up. I think this is, well, obviously, one of the most memorable episodes of the show. But how does it work as a finale? Does it give a satisfying end to the series and central conflicts of the character? And maybe, does it reach a level that the show never really did before? Let's go find out. Let's see if Chowder Grows Up is a fitting end for the iconic series. Also, I recently reached over 1,000 subscribers and I seriously can't thank you enough. I am so thankful for my great channel growth in this amount of time and the support I've gotten to keep going, and I am so thankful you all like my content. I don't exactly have anything planned for a special, but just know you all my thanks. For one, it's a miracle Chowder even got an ending at all, considering so many shows get cancelled before they can even try to wrap everything up or condense into one episode. Poor Mau Mau. But another thing is, Chowder is not serialized. It doesn't have an ongoing plot or even much conflict in general. So in this case, it's more so how the show wraps up its central themes and conflicts overall, if the characters have a satisfying ending to each of them. So it makes it both easier and harder to judge this episode as a finale. The premise of Chowder is that Chowder is a food-obsessed apprentice of Mung Dal, and he wants nothing more to be a great chef, with many episodes focusing on it, and gives some of the show's most meaningful moments overall, such as in Chowder's catering company and the moldy touch. So the episode would really need to focus on that to feel fulfilling. The episode opens up with surprisingly no extra fanfare or acknowledgement of its finite nature. Even the actual start feels exactly like a normal Chowder episode. It shows a pretty usual scene with Mung and co producing a weird, dangerous meal, in this case, Flammaburgers. And Mung tells Chowder not to let them touch or they'll explode. And of course, Chowder, in his usual kid self, starts to daydream and let his imagination get the better of him, and does so. Pretty much like every other episode. But this does prompt Mung Dal to tell Chowder he needs to, well, grow up, since he won't be his apprentice forever. And he'll eventually retire, and Chowder needs to take the company over. And Chowder responds by what the show does best, getting randomly insanely meta.
But this whole cartoon series is based on me being the apprentice.
And after spilling his heart on how much he loves Mung and being his apprentice, he goes into a random song about him being young and an apprentice forever.
I really grew up being young as a bitch. There's a lot of food to make right here, it is my day.
Wait a minute, is this a parody of those old Toys R Us commercials?
I really grew up, I'm a chef's apprentice. There's a lot of chefs amongst the pan, amongst the best. I don't want to grow up, I'm a Toys R Us kid. They got the best for so much less, you really flipped it.
Like, no one in your target demographic is gonna get it. I mean, I get it now, but it's been 15 years. We also see Panini and Gorgonzola in the song to re-establish their connections to Chowder for later. It'll be important. But Chowder gets so into it, he sings a high note for 20 years straight. Yes, really. This is how he warps to the future. That's so weird, though. Yeah, 100% expect that from Chowder. Well, okay, no, I would expect him to eat some food that aged him or maybe tie him up, but that'll probably be even more confusing. Which, wait, did no one interrupt him or stop him? I figured this way annoying after like 20 seconds. So as we're suddenly thrust into the future, we see Mung and Truffles are going to retire, but can't since Chowder still hasn't grown up. And not just that, but Schnitzel and Enda have actually gotten together. Now, this is weird for numerous reasons, But on the one hand, Endai's attraction to Schnitzel has been the focal point of numerous episodes, so it's not like this came out of nowhere. But on the other hand, it's made very clear that Schnitzel doesn't want to be with her since, well, she's pretty gross and clingy. Apparently he needs someone to complain about Chowder to, and she gladly did. Though Chowder has spent the last 20 years singing one note, and that's like literally all he's done. Granted, I would go insane hearing that for that long, but it's kind of a weird disconnect. Also, I guess he and his girlfriend didn't end up well. Still better than when he tried to steal and date a pizzeria animatronic. What is he, a FNAF fan? But Mung also takes Chowder to see how his refusal to grow up has created a ripple effect in his friends' lives. And Mung just flies him over there.
Wow, I didn't know you could fly.
Oh, sure, anything's possible in one of these 30-minute specials.
God, I love this show. But we see Panini, who's apparently opened up a pastry business, fitting for Endai's apprentice, but we also see how her being unable to marry Chowder has turned her deranged and delusional, now also treating her apprentice like her actual baby. Wow. And the weirdest part is, she never acts like this again in the entire episode. Like, she's perfectly normal for the most part, even with her limited screen time, but here it makes her look like she belongs in a mental ward. But Mung also takes him to see Gorgonzola, now the president of Candle Corp. Which, wait, is that like a company that sells candles or just some generic lighting company? But it seems super lucrative, which I wonder what exactly that candle holder does and why it seems to be so valuable. Though Gorgonzola does seem like someone who would do well in the corporate world.
I'm going to kill you. Mung, I want to go home!
However, Gorgonzola isn't happy with his success, as without Chowder, he can't be happy that he's more successful than him. Though Chowder has never really seen Gorgonzola as a rival, and is pretty happy-go-lucky, so I don't know what he wants. Like Panini, he also takes down his apprentice, though a lot less creepier. So yeah, his friends' lives are ruined. But honestly, it feels kinda like a just move on guys problem, though considering...
But this whole cartoon series is based on me being the apprentice.
Yeah, maybe they can't. Though Mung takes him to Gaspachos, which he's surprisingly doing well for himself, as he did grow up and now lives as a ninja secret agent getting a ton of money and dates and everything. Sounds suspicious? It should. But this inspires Chowder to grow up as well, as he needs to prove he can cook all by himself. But he needs to get an apprentice first. For some reason. Literally, why? Also, with what the Christmas special implied, this is also adopting a child, which is a whole other can of worms. And proceeds to lick children to the side. Yeah, sounds weird when I say it. But he doesn't pick any of them, but then decides on the last candidate far in the corner, a terrified literal box turtle he names Scraps. Wait, he names them? This has got weirder. But I gotta say, Scraps is by far the best character in this entire special, and you will see why. So with an apprentice, he needs to prove to all his friends that he can grow up and needs to cook a dish. And Chowder is terrified since he doesn't know what to do. You'd think he knows something after being with Mung this whole time, but to be fair, every episode has him not paying attention and screwing things up. But he believes in himself and turns into Colonel Sanders. Honestly, this entire scene is way too relatable.
Egg in a bowl. Ah! I'm a failure! I can't do this!
And yeah, Chowder can't take it and runs out of the kitchen and flees Marzipan to avoid having to grow up and ventures into the Sahara Desert. Not to be confused with the dessert desert from Viva Pinata. Would love to cover that one day. But wow, I gotta say the animation and style reach its peak here. The episode has been pretty standard so far, with a few more complexly lit and arranged shots, with most of the flair going to Chowder's sawing number from before. But wow, I love the way the desert is drawn, with its almost lava-looking textures of the sands, and the intense lens flare make it look scorched and unbearably hot. And I love the colors of the sand, it's so appealing, it looks like marmalade. No, not her. Chowder tries to get some food, but Scraps was actually in his bag instead. He said that Chowder was the only person who ever believed in him, and he could just let him run away to the desert alone, which is really strong and meaningful characterization for a character so soon after we met him.
Now we're gonna starve!
Oh geez, I wonder what could help with that. So yeah, the two are pretty much dead immediately, but they are saved by a Tuscan raider and brings them to a cave for safety. But hey, it's actually Gaspacho, who would have guessed. Of course Chowder's happy to see him, but he brings up he's clearly not living the high life he said he was. Gaspacho admits he lied the whole time, and that his mother told him he to grow up and get a real job. But wait, he's already a fruit merchant with his own stand. I mean, it's not the most glamorous job, but it's still a job. He tried to get a job in accounting, but couldn't do it, largely because he doesn't have fingers and can't do math, understandable. Unable to cope with it, he ran away to the desert like Chowder did to avoid his problems. Well, after...
Actually, I cried like a baby for a week. First, then I hid.
And now lives in a cave with hostile snakes and rad scorpions. Seeing what happened to Gaspacho when he tried to run from growing up, he has second thoughts. And later Gaspacho reveals his dream was to open up the Fruit Stand-Up, where he does stand-up comedy while selling fruit to his audience, which is actually a great callback to an early episode where he was a stand-up comedian. And the episode gets way too real.
Well, Mother says growing up is about doing what's expected of you, not what you want to do.
Chowder encourages him to go after his dream and not live in a deadly cave. Gaspacho also urges Chowder to commit to his dreams of being a chef. Even Scraps pipes in.
Mr. Chowder, you made cooking fun. For the first time in my life, I'm not scared.
Which is another really great moment for him. Partially ruined by Gaspacho wanting to eat him. And Chowder is so moved he goes to fulfill his destiny. Mung is eager to let Chowder finally prove he can be a chef and gives him a recipe to do. But Chowder rips it up, saying he needs to trust himself. Chowder gets Scraps to find a new recipe, but even the simplest one he's not sure what to do.
I think I just made a big mess in my pants. That gives me an idea!
Oh god, no. And they emerge with melted ice cream, I guess? Everyone is disheartened seeing the miserable dish, and Chowder's discouraged at to make it his own recipe. But it's actually Scraps who stands up for Chowder and eats it himself, and actually likes it. Everyone's shocked he's not dead and that it's good, and it makes them try it themselves, also agreeing it's pretty decent. He calls it Chowder's Big Miss Cake, which is the perfect name, and Mung declares Chowder successful enough to take over the company. And with that, Chowder's voice finally changes, signifying him becoming an adult, and fittingly voiced by Greenblatt himself. And we get a short montage of everyone in the future. Mung and Truffle's now retired, Gorgonzola finally getting to gloat about his success to Chowder, who of course doesn't care and is happy for him, which, what else were you expecting, dude? Schnitzel is living happily with Endive. You know what, if he's happy, let him be. And Gaspacho got the courage to open up his dream store to raving success. Really nice for him. And of course, Chowder now heads the catering company, mentoring Scraps like he once did. But Chowder also married Panini and had a whopping 50 babies, or Panchowbies as a previous episode said.
Going to marry my boyfriend, have dozens of babies. They were going to be called Panchobies.
And somehow warping space and time, past Chowder comes in and rejects this reality and mirrors what undoubtedly so many other fans said.
No! Stop! Hold it! I reject this future! It's evil! Evil!
But yeah, since this is the end game, I think it's fitting enough. Yeah, Kid Panini is creepy and very pushy, but she is still a freaking kid, and you can't judge how a person will end up when they were kids. Well, aside from that creepy scene in the beginning, seriously, what was up with that? Even Greenblatt stated that Chowder's disinterest in Panini was mostly because he's too young to get into girls.
And he likes me? I had no idea.
And some episodes do have him return the favor in some ways, so I don't have a problem with it. And it ends with, of course, acknowledging that Chowder and Scraps will still have cooking misadventures for years to come, as the book that opens every episode finally closes. The end. Or wait, the end credits say this is a dream. Ignore that. And yeah, it really hurt to see Chowder gone. Even if Greenblatt was facing burnout at the time, Chowder definitely deserves like one more season and maybe a TV movie. In fact, that wasn't off the table, as there was a movie planned. It would have involved a massive treasure hunt with the characters, trying to find the perfect gravy recipe while being pursued by pirates. And a big treasure movie for Chowder would have been the best. But unfortunately, it didn't come to fruition with the tight schedule of the show, Greenblatt being unhappy with the first draft, and of course, the eventual cancellation. Chowder has such charm and it was so much fun that it's sad to see them go. But how well did Chowder end? How did Chowder Grows Up work as a finale? And I'd say, it's actually great. I mean it, if Chowder had to end right here, I think this is a near perfect way to do it. Primarily, now it satisfies the characters and the overall theme of the show. Chowder spends the entire show wanting to be a master chef like his mentor Mung, but his childlike naivety and impulsiveness often gets in the way. Chowder embodies childhood wonder despite his goal only achievable once he matures. And what better way to end it than having Chowder deal with accepting the fact that he has to grow up and struggles with his innate childishness. Chowder is bombarded with expectations by everyone, and his lack of maturity has affected everyone else. He doesn't want to grow up and doesn't know if he can succeed. But after accepting he can't just run away from his problems, he needs to accept to grow up and achieve his dreams. But I think the ending is masterful because Chowder doesn't just instantly know what he's doing, nor does he just become a conventional chef. Instead, he succeeds in his own way. His childlike imagination lets him think outside of the box and make a new unorthodox, but still delicious recipe. And it's perfect for Chowder to do this. He's not book smart and doesn't abide by the rules, but he does what he feels is right and lets his passions lead him. And he becomes a master chef in his own way. And that's amazing. And everyone else had a great conclusion to their own story. But I really gotta applaud Scraps. I loved him so much. Despite only having like 4 or 5 minutes of screen time, he had a really compelling and strong character arc. Scraps, true to his name, was a reject. No one had faith in him, and no one even acknowledged him. Potentially because, or leading to his timid and anxious nature, hiding from the real world like Chowder does. But Chowder saw something in Scraps more than any other apprentice, and gave a chance on him. And Scraps never forgot it. And despite being terrified of the world, he went with Chowder to the deadly desert because he couldn't leave him to his fate. Since, as he said, Chowder was the only person who ever gave him a chance, and he kept that loyalty even when they thought they'd die.
At least I could be your master in death. I'd be honored to follow you, sir.
It's a similar loyalty to Chowder's loyalty to Mung, which might be what he saw in Scraps. And like Chowder had put his faith in him, Scraps gave his faith to Chowder, inspiring him to take on his future again. And together they worked on a brand new recipe that no one had faith in. But again, with his resolve and bravery that Chowder gave him, he stood up for his master, embraced his own life, or at least his taste buds by trying the food, and gives everyone else the faith to try the dish themselves and love it. Scraps grew from a timid kid scared of the world to gladly face his own death because Chowder had faith in him to succeed. And it's amazing in such a short time. If Chowder is an unorthodox chef, then he should have an unorthodox apprentice. And I feel Mungdal's Catering Company is in good hands for years to come. So yeah, I seriously think this episode concludes the themes of the show and has every character have a satisfying end. I seriously think it should be appreciated more for how well it pulled it off, and honestly to me, reaching a height above the rest of the series. But it's kind of amazing looking back on this episode now as an adult. It has such a different feeling than seeing it as a kid. Now as an adult, I see so much of the themes and problems this episode pushes on you. The thing is, growing up is not easy. When you become an adult, you get so many expectations thrusted upon you, and you don't know how many you can really achieve. I know it was ridiculous, but it can't seem like you grew up in an instant, and your childhood was just a distant memory. You don't instantly know everything as an adult, nor what's expected of you. You just hope what you learn as a kid is good enough and learn on the way. And a lot of people just can't deal with that, understandably. They just want to run away from the problems of the real world. But you just can't live like that. You gotta face it one way or another. And it can be so tough. You want to give up so often and so quickly, and wish back to the days when things were much easier and fun. But you have to remember that being grown up doesn't mean you have to give up on what made you special. Your drives, your passions, your imagination, even in the smallest ways. You have to be your own person and never forget who you really are. And who knows, maybe because of that, you'll bring something brand new that inspires others. So this episode, whether intentional or not, really shows that, and I feel it's gotten better with time. So yeah, Chowder Grows Up, you're a great finale. Oh wait, no, it didn't show up to my boy Ceviche, so it sucks.
We must avenge Panini's death.
I don't wanna grow up. There were so many silly things we liked to do. Yes. But we started growing up and now they're through. Yes. Being responsible's hard to do. Yes. I liked it more when it was just me and you. Yes. But what can you do?